Hey everyone, it's B. I'm here with Thought Catalog for the second episode of In Your Feelings, a podcast where we dive into the very real, very messy, very confusing emotions that come from navigating things in life like relationships, breakups, moving on, and we just want to make sure that you don't feel alone in what you're going through when you are dealing with those things. And yeah, that's what this is about. That's what we're here to do today. Today we're here to talk about moving on and how difficult it can be. And if you are moving on right now, and if you are finding it really hard, that's what we're going to dive into. So I think one of the first things that I just want to get off my chest and out there to all of you is that if you're finding that moving on is difficult for you and you're vilifying yourself for that, I need you to check that out the door right now. Moving on is the hardest thing you will have to do in life. Moving on is so difficult because when you care deeply, when you love deeply, when you give so much of yourself to something, when you envision your future with someone, when you have memories and nostalgia and songs that remind you of them and inside jokes, and you can't go to the corner store without remembering the times you went there together at 2 a.m. to get chocolate for your Netflix marathon, that's hard to lay down. You don't just break up and forget about all of that stuff. That stuff stays with you. It sticks to your bones. That's the best way I can describe it. It's sticky. It leaves a residue on your soul, and it is so unbelievably okay to find that navigation, that moving on, that breaking up hard, because it is hard. So firstly, please be gentle with yourself. We are human beings who are made to love one another on a biological, fundamental, innate level. We are drawn to each other. It's been scientifically proven that relationships make you live longer. We are primed to want to be with one another. It's a very primal thing. You just want to be with your person. You believe so deeply in the love that you gave and the love that you had, and that's beautiful. And I think it's beautiful to miss someone, and it's beautiful to know that you had something that special. But if the reality of the situation is that you can't be with this person, or that this person doesn't want to be with you, then you do have to take the steps, and you do have to find all the tools and really dig into yourself to take it day by day and step by step and hour by hour, because that is quite literally what moving on is. Taking it as taking as many baby steps as you possibly can, and doing it on your own terms, and not forcing your healing, but understanding that it might not always be linear, and that it's going to take time, and that your journey in healing and moving on is going to probably look really different than those around you. It's all about just understanding that you have something to do, not pushing yourself to nullify it or vilify it or desensitize yourself to it, but rather just understanding and giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling right now and deal with it on your own terms, but also know that you do have to do it, that you do have to move forward. And that's what this podcast is hopefully going to show you. I've thought up a few little reminders that I know I needed when I was dealing with the loss of someone I thought I was going to end up with. I got out of a 4-year relationship, and these were the things that I would remind myself of when memory and nostalgia would, swirl within me and kind of make me wonder if I made a mistake, or if I was unworthy, or if I was good enough, or anything along those lines. So I guess we can go into those now. So if you're moving on, if you're finding it difficult, if you're filling yourself with guilt because it's taking you too long to move forward, these reminders are for you. And so I guess the first reminder that I would need to consistently tell myself is that breakups warp your memory. And the people we're with, they're not perfect, and we're not perfect either, but it's hard to remind yourself of that when all you're remembering are those perfect moments. Because if I'm being completely honest, I don't leap towards remembering the negative about the people that I've loved and about the people that I've cared deeply. And I think that when you're empathetic, you can definitely rationalize some bad behavior, and you can sensationalize the good behavior. So when we're dealing with breakups and we're finding them difficult to move on because we're letting nostalgia swirl within us, we're idealizing the relationship. We are sensationalizing the memories, and that's very easy to do because there are beautiful moments that occur in relationships. Of course I want to remember, like laughing at someone as they sing in the shower, or the way it felt to be held by them, or what it felt like to kiss them for the first time, or being greeted at the door with flowers. There are so many things that bubble up inside of you, and memories that will stick with you. That's like the best way to describe it. Those memories are sticky. They're beautiful and sticky, and they leave a residue on your soul because they mean just so much to you. Those are the things that you leap towards when you're remembering someone. The way that they made you feel will stay with you forever. And when you miss someone, you're going to remember all of that positivity and all of that beauty and all of that hope that you felt. But I also need you to remember the heaviness and the dark, and the fact that sometimes, these people change, and the relationship did end for a reason. And so when you find yourself leaping towards nostalgia, I want you to try your best to leap towards reality, to understand that your relationship did end for a reason, to understand that, sometimes people change, and sometimes people can't be for you what you need. And sometimes you're remembering all of the beauty and all of the hope and all of the love and all of the just the goodness, but there was also the times that made you cry or that made you feel misunderstood. There were times where you genuinely questioned if this was your person. And so I need you to remember that as well. Don't forget the beautiful things. I don't even know if that's possible. Those stay with you forever. They change you. But it's also the negative things, the things that you don't necessarily want to remember, that are the reasons why the relationship ended. And those are the things, those are the memories that are going to help you to understand that this was actually a stepping stone, a beautiful ending that is going to push you towards learning more about yourself and being the kind of person who does attract someone who you do end up staying with for the rest of your life. And so, yeah, I think that was probably one of the most important things that I was reminding myself of when I was going through my breakup. I had a warped perception of what my relationship was, and that doesn't necessarily mean that this person wasn't a good person, because the reality of the situation is someone can be a beautiful human. Someone can make you feel beautiful things. You will never forget the people who make you feel hopeful in life, who just make your heart burst and ache with feeling. But that doesn't mean that they're your person. And, even if you felt at a point in time that they were, sometimes that changes. And sometimes circumstance gets in the way, and life gets in the way. And someone you thought could be here forever turns into someone who just isn't anymore. And that's okay. And that's what you have to remind yourself of. Okay, so reminder 2, something that really helped me. And I have such a tendency to do this, but I feel like when we are dealing with moving on, and when we are dealing with breakups, and when we're finding it difficult, we can tend to think that we were broken up with because of our unworthiness, rather than it just being an incompatible match. I mean, I know that when I was dealing with moving on, when I was navigating all of those feelings, I lived in what I started calling the if onlys or the what ifs. And the if onlys and the what ifs are, if only I had done this, or what if I had loved like this, or what if I had driven him to the airport, or what if I had told him I loved him 15 more times each day? What if only. We live in these alternate universes. We live in these concepts of I could have tried harder, I could have been more, I could have added more value. But the reality is that's not the case. And maybe you could have done more, maybe they could have done more. But the reality of the situation is that things ended, and that's due to incompatibility. That's due to two people just not working in a moment in time, and that is so okay, because sometimes people outgrow each other, and sometimes, people don't beat the odds, and sometimes it doesn't matter what you do or what you say or how much harder you try. It doesn't matter how much more you tear yourself down just to make all the pieces fit together. Sometimes things just don't work. Sometimes two people just don't work. No matter how much love is there, no matter how much you care about someone, sometimes circumstance and the mess of literally everything else going on in life kind of takes away from your relationship. It kind of changes things, and that's okay. And that's something that is really hard to admit to yourself, because it's really difficult to walk away in those circumstances. But the reality of the situation is that, things aren't working. The dynamic isn't working. There's an incompatibility that is taking away from the beauty of your relationship and what it was. And instead of gripping at what it was, it's time to really see it for what it is and understand that things had to end in order for you to move forward. And there's nothing wrong with that. And while we're on the topic of reframing those if onlys and the what ifs, I also think that we should reframe this idea that breakups are losses. And they are. I understand that they create voids in our lives. But at the end of the day, they're liberations too. Because here's something that I had to ask myself. Do I want to be with someone who is unsure of me? Do I want to be with someone I am unsure of? And that's where the liberation comes from, because at the end of the day, you literally, every single one of you deserves to be loved wholly and fully and for who you are. And someone who is loving you with one foot out the door, someone who is loving you but questioning your heartbeat, someone who hesitates to give you what you need, if someone cannot show up for you, if someone cannot value you, if someone knows that they absolutely cannot be the person that you need right now, and they leave and they walk away, then that is not a loss. That is freedom for you. That is space. That is beautiful gifts being given to you, the ability and the capacity for you to go out into your life and find the people who genuinely want to give you that. Because if you are holding so much space in your life for someone who is not claiming it, if you're holding so much space in your life for someone who is doubting you or doubting the relationship or loves you but just can't freaking do it right now, then you deserve to be freed from that. You don't deserve to be in a relationship that is just going to end up making you feel alone. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be cherished. You deserve someone who sees the value in being with you and committing to you and choosing you. So no, a breakup isn't a loss. And I know it feels like that. And I know moving on is so difficult because we have to confront all of the voids that this person has created in our life. And we let them walk away with so many pieces of us. But that just means that we're being given the opportunity to hack our wounds, to do our work, and to find the things in life that genuinely meet us where we are. And that's why I refuse to believe that someone walking out of my life is a loss. I actually think that is a blessing in disguise. And it takes a long time to think of it like that. It takes a long time to reframe those thoughts, because again, we've been taught that being in a relationship is the source of our worthiness and our value. But the real worthiness and the real value comes from knowing yourself and knowing what you deserve and standing up for that. And if that means that you need to walk away from someone, then that's okay. And if someone walked away from you because they needed to be true and authentic and genuine with themselves to find what truly makes them happy, then that's great too. You can't hate them for doing that. All you can do is hope that you go out into the world and give yourself permission and encouragement to do so for yourself as well. Okay, so the last little reminder was breakups are not losses, they are liberations. And this one is going to be breakups are not losses, they are lessons. And I think this is probably one of the more well-known reminders that we all tell ourselves. It's that, you know, I may have been walked away from, or I may have walked away from a relationship, but there's so much I learned in that relationship that I can take with me into my future to discover something that actually is more for me. And I think it's very easy to distract ourselves from that work that we have to do. I think it's very easy to distract ourselves from the questions that we have to ask ourselves. But if you really are dealing with a difficult time right now, if you really are finding it hard to move on, I would try to encourage yourself in the things that you learned and the growth that you were able to experience, because that's only ever going to help you as you move towards your future. So I don't know if you want to get out a piece of paper, or if you want to make a list of reminders of things that answer the question of what it is you actually do want, because that's what this relationship has taught you. That's what this relationship has opened your eyes to. Things ended and things didn't work, and now you get to evaluate and take inventory of all the things that did and didn't work, all the things that you did really like, and all the things that you didn't like at all. It's time to ask yourself how you showed up and how you wanted to be showed up for. It's time to ask yourself how you communicated and how you liked being communicated to, because there's a duality to it. It's not just about the other person. There's a lot of lessons that the other person taught you. They taught you what you like in another human being and what you maybe don't want to settle for again. And you'll notice that in the next person who comes along, and you won't settle for it. That will be your growth. But there's also a lot of lessons to be learned within yourself. There's a lot of ways that we show up in relationships that, you know, we look back on and we realize weren't so virtuous or weren't so good. They're not a reflection of who we want to be or how we want to feel. And those are beautiful lessons, because not only are they going to help you in your future relationships, but they're also going to help your relationship with yourself. They're also going to help you to define who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. So by taking the time to really sit with those feelings, by taking the time to really ask yourself what caused your unhappiness, or what caused your unease, or what made you feel unworthy, or what hurt you, or what you dreamed of having in your relationship, it's so important, because it's building a foundation for you to go out and discover the things that are more for you than whatever you're leaving in your past. And I know how harrowing all the last few reminders can be. I know when you're dealing with having to lay all of your love down, the last thing you probably want to do is to take an inventory of all the hard and difficult lessons you learned along the way. I know it can be difficult to sit with yourself and to sit in all of that hurt. And so I wanted to also add in like a little more of an optimistic reminder, something that, you know, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that a breakup is an opportunity for you to know yourself as well, and to get to know yourself on a level that exists outside of your identity as a caretaker or a caregiver or someone who is giving love constantly to a relationship. And that's something that is so unbelievably beautiful. There's space in your life for you to rediscover yourself outside of someone, outside of a relationship. There's space for you to, I mean, it's as simple as waking up in the middle of the bed or just being okay on your own, having a morning to yourself, having that quiet. It's discovering that you like certain songs and they're your songs. They're not songs that are, you know, filled with nostalgia. They're yours and yours alone. It's the smallest, most nameless things that you discover in your life that help you to realize that love and happiness and that wholeness that we tend to associate with being in a relationship comes from things that have nothing to do with romantic love, because love is quite literally all around you. And when you really, really start to live your life for you, and when you really start to show up for that discovery and that exploration and just experiencing life and really leaping towards the people you meet and leaping towards the things that ignite your soul and make you feel alive, the things that you want to chase in life, when you really, really dedicate yourself to that, it is so unbelievably beautiful. Those are the moments that you will start to realize your hope within. Those are the moments that you'll stop in and you'll be like, wow, I'm okay. I'm okay on my own, because I'm learning about myself and I'm learning about my strength. And not only am I learning about my strength and all of that, you know, all of that intense stuff, but I'm also having fun again, and I'm also finding joy in my life. And that joy isn't contingent on who comes in and out of it. They can't take it with them when they go. That joy is contingent on me simply knowing myself. And that is really, really beautiful. And that's something, that kind of discovery comes with time, and it's not linear, and there are always going to be days where you're kind of pulled into the darkness of it all, and that's where you'll start doing that heavy, heavy work. But I think right now, if you're finding it really difficult to move on, I think you need to play. I think you need to find your joy. I think you need to like hug your friends and be reminded that there is so much more to life than sleeping beside another human being who just makes you feel alone anyways. There's so much more to be discovered, and I really hope you give yourself permission to discover it. And I really hope you give yourself permission to have the courage to chase things that make you happy like that. And speaking to that beauty, I mean, endings can be beautiful as well. And I understand it. This is all so messy and so confusing. And as I just said, healing is not linear, and it is going to be very, very hard on certain days. But if you're finding it difficult to move on right now, if you're finding it difficult to cut the pain from the bone and to just move forward, I need you to know that endings don't have to be messy. Do not let the world convince you that you have to hate someone you felt something beautiful with. Do not let the world convince you that you have to vilify them and nullify what you felt, that you have to just completely forget. It's okay to remember. It's actually quite beautiful to remember. As long as you are rooted in the reality of what your relationship is, you can see it for something that was actually quite a beautiful addition to your life. And how lucky are you to have experienced something that a lot of people don't experience in their life? How lucky are you to have been held and seen, even if just for a moment in time? And I think that's what you have to remind yourself of when you are dealing with these feelings. You don't have to hate. You just have to appreciate what you had and love this person without needing to have them in your life, and love them without attachment. And, sometimes you just outgrow one another, and sometimes the relationship ends, and that's okay. But the beauty of it all is that you were changed and you grew within that relationship. You taught each other lessons, and now you get to go off into the world and you get to teach other people within that growth and within those lessons. You get to change people. That love flows through you and into everyone you'll meet, because it becomes a part of who you are. And how beautiful is that you were able to have something, that you were able to experience something that was so kind and honest until it wasn't. And in that moment, how amazing is it that you walked away, that you knew that both of your hearts deserved more, that there was something else out there for both of you to experience, something that was more for you, something that would fulfill you in different ways. Because not a lot of people have the courage to do that. And I know that sounds negative, and I try not to be negative, but there are so many people sleeping beside others who make them feel so alone, and that genuinely breaks my heart. So if you have walked away from someone who you thought was your forever, how cool is it that you were able to find someone who made you feel that way? And how cool is it that you were able to walk away from someone who made you feel that way? Or that you were able to come to terms with the fact that something like that ended, that it was no longer serving you, that it was no longer meant to be in your life, and you had the courage to do something about that. And you had the courage to stand up for that, and to stand up for your heart, and to stand up for the value that you want for it in your future. That is incredible. And there's something so transformative about that. It's like an evolution. So an ending doesn't have to be messy. It can just be an evolution. And when you can start to see it that way, it can hurt a little less. It's always going to hurt. It's always going to sting, as I've said. But it hurts a little less because you see that it has purpose built within it. You see that there is a reason for all of it happening, and you can move forward within that. However, if none of the other reminders have filled you with optimism or encouragement, or felt as beautiful as I have tried to make them seem, or helpful, I do just want you to remind yourself that breakups are hard, yes, but you have survived hard things before. The people you thought broke you, the things that you thought you would never, ever get through, the moments in your life where you have felt like you were at your worst, or at your heaviest, or in your darkest age, you came out of those moments. And it wasn't easy, and it was really, really hard, but you still survived those things. You still woke up in the morning. You were brave enough to keep going. Your life didn't stop. The world didn't spontaneously combust. You healed slowly but surely. You moved forward out of a situation that you genuinely never thought you were going to be able to move forward from. And now it might be 5 years later, or 1 year later, or 6 months later, and I hope you can think back to those moments, back to all of those times you thought that this was it, that it was done, you were never going to fall in love again, you were never going to find someone who understood you or saw you or valued you. I want you to look back to those moments and remind yourself that you did find that dynamic again, that you did find joy again, that life blossomed and opened up in ways that you never would have thought it would. And that's because you gave yourself permission to keep going, to move forward. You were strong enough to survive the wreckage, and you pulled lessons from it, and you grew from it, and changed you and turned you into the kind of person who is going to be able to do it again and again and again and again, and you're only going to get stronger. You know, one of my favorite quotes that I've ever read is that, you know, we try to unburden our hearts. We try to pull so much out of ourselves. We bankrupt ourselves to get rid of the heaviness. But at the end of the day, the heart is a muscle. It needs that weight to grow. And if you desensitize yourself to this, if you just lock yourself away and stop trying, your heart is just going to stay at the same level. It's going to have that foundation within it. It's going to exist within that rubble and that wreckage. But if you take inventory and decide that you want to rebuild it, you want to build it into something that is going to go into this next relationship or friendship or any situation in your life and survive it, you're going to be able to do it because you've done it before. So I don't care if you have to write a list right now of all of the times you've thought those things and all of the ways in which you pulled yourself out of those situations. Whenever you feel like you are not going to be able to get through this, remind yourself of the moments that you did. All right, so those were all the reminders, and I really hope that you enjoyed the podcast. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this encouraged you, and I hope that it helped your heart. And let us know your feedback. Let us know what you want to hear from us next or what you're going through, because that's what this podcast is all about. Just being a shoulder to lean on, and you know, I just want to give you all the tools you need to move forward in your life and to know that you're not alone. So yeah, I know I said this was going to be mainly reminders, but I did just want to read a poem very much related to this topic called This Is Me Moving On, for any of you who connect with poetry and spoken word and want to meditate on the prose. It's here for you. So this is me moving on. This is me accepting the ache of missing you. This is me waking up every single day and tackling the street corners we walked upon, the corner coffee shops we ate at, the sheets we wrapped ourselves in at night. This is me waking up every single day, aware of what is missing, but accepting of the fact that this is my life now, that this is the way things are going to be. This is me understanding that it is okay to have my heartbeat speak your name. This is me understanding that it is okay to miss someone who was once such a staple in my life, but this is also me understanding that life does go on, that one day I will hear the songs and smile. I will sleep in the sheets and they will no longer smell like you. One day I will fall in love again. One day I will look back on this and my hands will not shake with the heaviness of it all. This is me moving on. This is me accepting the fact that we will no longer make memories together. This is me coming to terms with the reality of a future without you. This is me understanding that you will do everything we had ever spoken about. You will live a life you are proud of. You will become the person you told me you hoped you could be. You will take the trips. You will experience all of the things you wanted to experience. You will love deeply and wholly and with every inch of your patchwork heart, but all of that will happen without me by your side. This is me moving on. This is me accepting that you will as well. This is me coming to terms with the fact that someone else is going to fall in love with your light, that someone else is going to be your biggest fan. This is me hoping that you will find the love you deserve. This is me hoping that you will find someone who inspires you and moves you and appreciates every stunning thing you are. This is me hoping that you find someone who stirs the deepest parts of your being. Someone who is both your safe place and your biggest adventure. This is me hoping that you are happy, truly happy one day. This is me moving on. This is me accepting that sometimes beautiful things end. This is me understanding that there is nothing I can say or do to fix that. This is me coming to terms with the fact that sometimes leaving is an act of love too. That sometimes you have to walk away from something soft and hauntingly real. That sometimes hearts don't align. But this is me accepting that endings don't have to be messy. This is me understanding how incredible it really is that for a moment in time, in a world of billions, two strangers were in the right place at the right time and something transpired between them. This is my heart swelling with the thought that at one point in time we were the lucky ones. At one point in time we beat the odds.